Hello, everyone. I'm Emily,
And I'm Scar.
and welcome back to another episode of the Cottage Horrors podcast.
It's our favorite topic of this podcast, but with a twist.
Ooh,
Because it's Until Dawn, the movie.
da da
But
da.
yeah. But is it really Until Dawn? That's the question. I mean, we knew it wasn't. We knew it wasn't, to be fair. To be
Yeah.
fair, we knew it wasn't. Pre-spoiler warning, we will be discussing the movie if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it and you are interested in going seeing it, I actually would say like do go see it.
Yes.
Um, because as much as kind of we were like riffing on it when it was first announced and like what it's gonna be, objectively, if you detach it from like Until Dawn, I had a silly goofy time. So like
Yes.
um it gave me some questions to ponder upon. So like, I enjoyed my cinema experience. Um but if you're looking for Until Dawn, that is not what you're getting. So then, I'm sure most people know that, but do not walk into that theater expecting anything but
As as a movie, as just flat out movie, I give it a 4 out of 5.
yeah, me too.
As
Yeah.
an Until Dawn adaptation, 2 out of 5.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that for sure. I think to be fair, like we'll get into it. Um, I we knew it was going to be separated, and I was quite nervous at how separated it was going to be. We saw that they were including the creatures, so I was kind of like, okay, there's some links, and I do think that the links that they put in there, especially at the end, but we'll get to that because that was
Yes.
like low key bananas. But I do think the links that they kind of put in there felt good enough that it felt like it wasn't trying too hard to be it, but it also
Mhm.
wasn't like 100% separated. Like it's more on this scale of like a different entity than obviously like the same, but it has enough like weavings where you're like, this is part of a bigger picture. And they definitely are putting the feelers out there. And I don't know what Sony are really doing with Until Dawn
Yeah.
at the moment because it went to Ballistic Moon to remaster it. Ballistic Moon have unfortunately like gone under and like lost
Have
all
they?
their stuff. Yeah, they're
I
fucked.
didn't
Like,
know that.
yeah, they're busted. So any chances of a sequel? I mean, I don't know if the sequel would have fallen to Ballistic Moon anyway because they're not that type of studio. They're simply like a remaster, remaking studio. But any
Yeah.
hopes of them taking on that responsibility have gone. But Sony seem very invested in this IP again, which is very bizarre. So I'm curious to see
Yeah.
what that will do because if this like do I think it's going to smash the box office? No, that's not what it's trying to do. But if it gets enough people talking and enough interest stirring, especially with people like Peter Stormare and like even like Hayden, like kind of talking about like, oh yeah, like this is fun. Maybe we'll see something crop up, but it's just interesting because I'm like, why? Like, why all of a sudden have they decided like this is the time to push this again? But who knows? So I think more may be coming, but I don't know quite what that is yet.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, kinda like you said, like, there was more ties to it than I think we initially anticipated just based on the trailers. But I
Yeah.
will say that, like, while the ties were there, you could also swap some of the names and keep the plot, and it would still like, it wouldn't necessarily be Until Dawn anymore, like, then it would just be, like, a generic horror movie. So I
Yeah.
feel like the ties were still quite weak in that sense.
But that's why I kind of, like, appreciate it because it's not like they're trying to jam it down you, like, "Look at what we're doing." It felt like you
Yeah.
said, things can be replaced, so it's like they're trying to create these invitations to keep it connected, but it's not like nothing of that is integral, realistically, like you said, to the plot, which I think what is why it kind of works. I do wish there was more, but I think actually there is quite a lot more. It's like the small stones building up, but
Yeah.
it's very fascinating.
I just wish they wouldn't have called it Until Dawn. Like,
Me
I
too.
respect that it's in the universe, but I wish it would have been like Until Dawn, a new chapter, or something like a little extra title,
I agree,
just to
yeah.
really drive home that like it's in the universe, but
Yes,
it's not the game.
because this is what this opens up, and this is what my big, like it's not my annoyance with it, but this is my big, like, pondering thing. This is my question pool to everyone, is, like you said, universe. This now opens it up that this game is part of a bigger entity. Previously, under Supermassive Games, they've been quite like open about the fact that Until Dawn is its own entity, and then you have the Dark Pictures anthology, which are one big universe. And we see that because you have the
Yes.
creator who tells the stories of the anthologies. Makes
Yes.
sense. Sick. We're opening a new chapter with that with season 2 at the end of the year. So that's really exciting. Until Dawn has always been separated. There is no like
Mhm.
that is it. But now it opens up the question of no, like this is something that is not an isolated incident. Potentially, there is more going on here. What does that mean? It also really, 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 and I've always said this, and I will go back and I want to like clip up all the times where I was like, I do think Dr. Hill is still more than a psychiatrist because again, kind of proving the point that maybe he is. Like, again, how interlinked are they? I don't know. And do we think that Dr. Hill is this omnipotent character? I guess maybe so. Like, maybe because who knows? And the fact that, like, I don't know, that's what's interesting is it poses this question of what does this mean for the wider universe? And because this is the thing where it's like, what is this just kind of like a, oh, we're just like having a bit of a giggle, or is this serious and like this is actually like, no, Dr. Hill is this present person who poses as a psychiatrist, presumably like researcher, and is basically aware of death. And this plays into a line that is in the remaster of Until Dawn, where if you choose a different option when choosing to let go or grab the hand in the prologue, you get an extra scene, an extra dialogue with him being like, you cannot change this, which like infers that he is definitely like, all seeing, all being, all aware, which is kind of like wild. So, but then I'm like, that causes so much complication to everything we've ever known. And it's
Yeah.
like low key and frustrating and so like bewildering. So I'm like, what does this mean? What does
Yeah,
this mean?
it's so fascinating the way they took Dr. Hill in the movie.
Mhm.
Because in the game, we only see him through Josh's hallucinations. And so
Yes.
he's not exactly a bad character, like he's not like evil per se, but he has like this like weird evil vibe to him and it's kind of
Mhm.
assumed because like Josh is obviously really struggling with his mental illness. He is seeing the psychiatrist who wants to help him in a bad light because he doesn't want the help. He doesn't want to get better.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see him actually be the antagonist in the movie.
Yeah.
And it is interesting to see because like it also does kind of like feed into I feel like Dr. Hill did not do enough to help Josh in the game,
No.
and I've always felt that way.
No,
And so
yeah.
it's very interesting now to see I'm curious how much of his character in the movie is like canon to his video game character because like it does have so much more implications of like what was he trying to do to Josh?
Well, this is the thing because he says a really I can't like quote the line he says. But we're getting to like the end of the movie, but we'll
Yes,
discuss. But this is important for the current round we're on. When him and Clover, who is like our like we have a bunch of protagonists, but she's our
our
final
main
girl per
protag.
se. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we get to Clover and they're in the exact replica of Dr. Hill's office, down to the
I
giant pen, the giant pen.
I
I
wanted to
pissed myself.
scream.
The
I wanted
giant
to
pen.
scream, yes. I was sitting there and I saw the pen and I was like, Scar must have lost their mind at that.
I lost my mind. I
I
lost my
was
mind.
freaking out.
I immediately turned to my boyfriend. I was like, "It's a giant pot." And the three of us would be like, "What the fuck is that person's problem?" I promise I don't speak
Yes.
during movies, but that moment I had to speak. I'm sorry, like that was important to me because
That
how can
and
you replicate everything to the pen? That's insane work.
when when we saw that file,
Oh, okay. This is what I was going to get onto, right? Because he says to Clover like, "Oh, it's all in your head. Like you're really fascinating." Like, so it's this idea of like, is he picking people up like in friend groups? Like, is he picking up people in friendship groups which have been tied to troubling events, typically troubling family events? Okay, in this scenario, in Clover's friend group, no one in her friend group is actively responsible for her sister's Melanie's disappearance, but that's a heavy like uh theme running through, right? And
yes.
then you see
Yeah.
Josh's file, and it is like it does pose the question of like, is Dr. Hill actually like purposely seeking out these people? Because we saw that Clover wasn't getting help.
Mhm.
Max says no, it wasn't Max, but like basically in we get revealed like she's had 2 attempts on her life after her sister and mum left. She wasn't really seeking help. This is her like one all be all closure to follow the route that her sister took. So she didn't seek psychiatric help.
Mhm.
But like I wonder if that's the pull, right? Like this okay, Melanie went there on her own, but this idea of like if he is this bigger presence, like did he pull that on purpose to try and get Clover there? But like he said, like, oh, it's all in your head. Like he seeks these people out like quite intensely to see kind of the human psyche of like what he can do. So that is the question of like, I don't know if he ever truly was helping Josh the way
Yeah.
we maybe wish he was. Like, I think he was, but, like, also there's the idea that he was misdiagnosed by Dr. Hill, and that seems incredibly likely based on, like, the reports you can read. Like, he was given the wrong medication for what he actually needed. So it seems like he genuinely could have been more of an antagonist as we perhaps once were led to thought, um, because it's fascinating. And I can't remember exactly the line he says to Clover, but it's really
I remember
fascinating
what you're talking
in
about, yeah.
yeah, in tandem with that and then the file reveal that he puts down, like, it's a very fascinating thing because it does link these 2 people quite heavily together. Um,
Well, I'm
so
also
it's
curious too, like, okay, do we think timeline-wise it's game and then movie
yeah, because
or
he has
movie
the
then
Blackwood
game?
Sana well, he has the Blackwood Sanatorium,
Right, okay. So it's
ID
also
pass.
interesting because, you said, like, misdiagnosing Josh and everything like that. I wonder how much of it was, genuine with Josh, and then, like, he realized,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
"Oh, this could be fun. I could
Yeah.
do stuff with this," and that's why, like, his approach with Clover is a little bit different.
I do think so. Like, um I think that definitely is a ploy there because we saw like there was a scene which is kind of where we get our big exposition dump. And usually I don't like the big exposition dumps they do in movies, but actually this was actually done quite well. It felt quite
Mhm.
organic. They were in this like basement of this welcome home they were in, and they find like a radio. They talk to him over the radio, and he's like, "Lol, come find me." He doesn't say that, but he basically did. Um,
Basically.
and then they try to find information and they unlock a desk. They find a map. There's a sanatorium on there. Dr. Hill's like favorite place. He's foaming at the mouth for sanatoriums, clearly. But they find a bunch of ID cards. And there's like tons of these
Yeah,
ID cards. And one of them on there is the sanatorium that they're currently at and also Blackwood Pines. So like that is the link. But it also implies like he's been kicking around, bro. Like
yeah,
he's been around. That's why it's also interesting because I do think potentially this is like I don't necessarily know if he's been doing this elsewhere. I do think this is like to potentially like as you said, it feels like Josh was like the first try and this is like the second go because the Blackwood Pines one is the one directly under this current sanatorium keycard. So it seems like that's kind of what is being played there. But yeah, and then we also get the tape that Max puts in where it's like him voiceovering a creature and a person like in a
mhm,
chamber that we later see Megan in. And he's like talking about like the impacts of like craving and stuff. So he's clearly learned about the creature. And like again, that seems like it would probably be from the events of the game where potentially that was first seen. But also like it's confusing because the mining collapse of I can't remember when the mining collapse of this town happened, but like a long time ago, like pre game for sure.
yeah,
If the game is coming out in if the game is like 2014, 15, this so I don't actually know if they said in the movie what year it was, but presumably modern day. But I don't know if
I
they
think
said.
so.
But the mining collapse, I don't know if they said when the mining collapse was because basically what happened was is we find out that this whole town got sunk into the earth because of a mining collapse, which obviously like echoes the mine collapse that we see happen in Until Dawn, which obviously happened like again like way, 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 way ago. And it ultimately caused like everything in the town to like be underground and therefore become part of like the night is what they call it. It
Mhm.
basically got like cursed, so seemingly again like that's another through thread of the supernatural, which makes sense. It wouldn't just disappear. Um, and like given what Doctor Hill was saying, it seems like the people under there like turned into creatures based on their desperation and fear by just being like under the fucking earth because why the fuck would you not be scared? That's why we
Yeah,
see some of them around. But incredibly like interesting. I'm gonna try and find out if we know when the mines collapsed
in the
uh
movie.
in
Okay.
the movie.
Um, okay. I will also just share, like, a couple random thoughts. The sanatorium was just as stressful in that movie as it is in the game.
Ooh, but that it
And we
gave us
weren't
one of the
even there that
best
much.
it gave us one of the best shots in the movie though, when Clover's on the
Yes.
floor, like, that is such a cool shot, like, cool shot.
I desperately I knew it wasn't gonna happen, but I desperately wanted a Wolfie cameo. I was like, "If you give me
Yeah,
Wolfie right now, I will forgive so much." Also, um, one of the best lines of that movie was Megan asking, "Is anyone growing extra teeth?" And the other girl responding, "How many are we supposed to have?"
yeah, yes,
Because you know what? Same.
I do so it definitely was quite evident that we had our cast of friends typecasted into the Until Dawn casting group, um,
Mhm.
and it felt okay, it felt fine, I didn't think that was necessarily, like, a bad thing, but yeah, that line was really good. Most of Abe's lines were absolutely, like, delivered to the Michael Monroe level that I wanted them to be, so 10 out of 10 for that for sure. Um, I can't find anything about the mining collapse. Although must say I don't know if anyone's really doing the research that we are trying to do. So,
Yes.
um, I don't know. Uh, I'm not
I
sure
will
if this
say,
is
one of going back to the characters and being typecasted, one of the things I did struggle with the movie is I feel like we didn't get to know the characters well enough to care.
no, no.
Like, there was on I was, like, 3/4 of the way through the movie, and I was like, "What is that character's name?" Like, I couldn't even really remember
Yeah,
their
I I
names.
I I do think that is, like, a problem. I think that's the problem when, like, with the game, like and again, like, I don't wanna constantly be comparing it because I don't think it's fair, but with the game, you obviously have, like, you have, like, the prologue and, like, 2 to 3 chapters where you're kind of like there's no stakes. You're just vibing. And then you get
Yeah.
thrown into the action. Whereas with this movie, like, you immediately get thrown in effectively into the action, within the first, like, 15 minutes, which is fine. It makes sense for the movie and it works, but therefore you don't kind of understand the dynamic because like, it's truly like you kind of get information on the friend dynamic, but you kind of don't. Like, why are they even friends? How are they friends? When
Yeah.
did they become friends? I'm like, clearly they're quite good friends, which is fine. But I'm like, they've been friends for quite a long time, presumably based on like the stuff they were talking about. But like, I'm like, why? How was it just school? Like, I presume so. And like, Abe's not even in the friend group really. He's just dating. So like, it's a really like weird it's really weird in that sense because 'cause I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
actually know the vibes. But then but it's nice because you, like you can see how much they do care about each other even though sometimes it gets, like, funny, but, like, it feels genuine. Like, it feels like, yes, these are people that I genuinely believe riff on each other like this, but I do wish there was, like, more to them. But then I guess that's kind of the
Yes.
point, right? Like, they're expendable, like, that's the thing, and it definitely felt like that where there was points and I was like, "Yeah, just die." Like, I was like, "Yeah, just kill yourself." And I'm like, "No, like, that's the point, right?"
That's
Like,
bad.
that's bad, but I'm like, "No, like, she has the right idea," but that's kind of the dilemma that you put yourself in when you're like, "No, actually, like, that's not good."
Yeah,
That's not
yeah.
it's not good. It's it's interesting. I'm just like I stumbled upon this article and they were talking about how, uh oh, okay, that's interesting. But they were talking about basically like how the ending and how this like nature of this like diminishes like turns Josh's trauma into a joke. And
Mm.
I think that's very interesting, but I also think that's like quite intense of a claim to make. When Until
Yeah.
Dawn itself was already campy, this is not trying to do anything that the game wasn't. I understand where they're coming from of like trying to like boil it down to like nothing. I don't necessarily think that's what they're doing. But it does pose this idea of like, um, what are they actually trying to say? Let me actually try and figure out what they're trying to say because I actually don't know what they're trying to say.
Actually, like, decode this, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't see anything. This is a movie about overcoming trauma. Yes, we know that. And the survivors will somehow. Yeah, so he'll still survive. So he definitely is like an omnipotent person. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like, actually, from skimming it, I don't actually know what they were trying to get at. So that I think the headline was just to grab my attention, and it did because I was confused, and now that's fine. Um, but yeah, and they also mentioned, and this is also going to the point of like, do we think when it came first? And this is why it's also interesting because the scene at the end where you hear Hill whistling and you see the CCTV camera switch to like presumably a cabin in the woods. People are like, "Oh, that's Until Dawn." I disagree because I don't that
You can't
car
drive a
you
car.
can't drive to the lodge. You cannot drive to the lodge.
Yeah. So, yeah, I
Like,
disagree, it's not it
yeah,
is setting up for potential sequel,
I agree. I think
but
it's
it's
someone
not the ski
yeah.
lodge.
I
The
think
whole
it's
point of
someone
a ski lodge is you gotta go up the
is
ski
kind of
ramp.
yeah, I think it is definitely baiting a sequel. It's doing something. And I
Yes.
wonder if again it's linked to in the remaster of the game at the end, you have Sam in like well, I mean, she's in like where is she in Los Angeles? And she has this like thing on her arm and she's reading about the creatures and you hear like an alarm thing and it's like, do you hear Josh's voice? Some people say it's Dr. Hill's voice. Where is she? Is she in a psych ward? Like who knows? Potentially that is what it is. But yeah, I mean people were like, "Oh, it's Until Dawn." I'm like, "No, no." Unless they're changing the setting, which you cannot. The integral part of the game is the fact that they're on a mountain and they cannot get down.
Yes.
If you have it so they can drive away, no stakes.
I mean, I guess in that same fold though is they tried to drive away in this movie and they couldn't because of other
Yeah,
reasons.
true.
So, like, you could,
But
but
like the point
at at this point, I don't want them to make the video game.
no,
Like,
no,
if you're
neither do
gonna
I.
expand on the universe,
Yeah.
that's fine. Make another movie and expand on it. Do not take us back to that ski lodge. That's
Yeah,
not what I want at this point.
I agree. So I do think this is a separate I think he just has returned. Um yeah, I mean as soon as I saw that car pull up, I was like, this is not that's not my Blackwood Pines launch.
So,
No, but it does show that this is like potentially going to be an oncur like reoccurring event. Which again, like it's kind of low-key wild. Like Mr. Hill like literally exploded and was like, psych, I'm gonna do it again. Like,
speaking
but he's trying to find the perfect like victim though.
candidate.
Failed again.
Yeah. Speaking of the exploding,
Bro,
I'm gonna be honest, I
insane
hated it.
shit. Yeah, it was I will say, I was not sure because I know our ratings are different, but this was rated a 15 in the UK. And like that's fine. Most horror movies, to be fair, now are rated 15s unless you're like literally going bananas. Like Terrifier is like an 18, makes sense.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, okay, it's gonna be like normal run of the mill. I was not expecting this much gore. I was genuinely quite floored by how gory and intense some of the kills were, and I think it was good. Don't be wrong, I love me that, but I was a little bit shook to my core when it first happened because I was like, "Oh, that is a rather brutal. That is rather brutal." Like when Megan like did her like possession shit and like snapped all her bones, I was like, "Oh my god, we are in for a ride."
See, I didn't like it because of the gore thing.
Mhm.
I didn't like the spontaneous combustion because to me it was just stupid.
Well, I think that's the point, right? Like some of it was just like, "This is dumb." Like this is it's
Yeah, but
this.
like I don't know, that just took me out so much more than
I
any
do.
of the other
Yeah,
deaths.
that's
Like,
fair.
the other deaths felt like genuine horror movie stuff happening.
Yeah.
Drinking some water and exploding did not also, like, the it did not seem like they kept consistency in the time between you drinking and you exploding, and
I
so
think it's to
that
do with
bothered me.
I think it's to do A with the amount and people like people's tolerance. Honestly, I think that's how they would explain it, which I agree is low key cheap, but I
But
think that's kind of the narrative
we
they're pushing down
see
there.
was Max the ex-boyfriend? Clover's ex-boyfriend?
Yeah.
Is that his name? Max? So him and Clover both take just like a sip of the water. And
Mhm.
that's why it takes a little bit longer because Abe drank like a full glass and all that
Yes,
stuff.
yes.
They take like a sip, they take longer. Okay, that I was totally on board with. But then later, when Clover and Max are hiding by the mines,
Yes, yes,
he
yes.
drinks just like a little like out of his palm and
Yeah.
explodes almost immediately. So like that consistency was not
That is true. I didn't think about that. That is true. That is fair. Yeah.
so that just to me, it was a little bit dumb, and I
Yeah.
didn't like it.
I will say like it does it and I think this is something that I did appreciate that they were very self-aware when they had that moment where Max is like, "Oh, it's just like those horror movies," like, and then where it like repeats the day, and they were self-aware. Like I do appreciate that they acknowledged that because I think that was both of our things that we raised, where it's like this has been done before. Like this idea of recycling has been done before. It
Yes.
felt different enough to warrant
Yeah.
it being its own thing, so I was happy with that. Yeah, it was it was interesting as well because the it really does the whole what am I trying to say? The whole, like, survive the night or become a part of it is, like, a very that is, like, the through thread of these 2
Yeah.
entities together. Because, like, ultimately, like, Josh now can survive the night or become a part of it. So it's like that is quite an interesting through thread that we're seeing here. And again, we kind of saw that with Clover where he was like, "Oh, come to me in the woods," which is, like, really weird.
Yeah.
So I do think, like, if we're gonna see more of this, like, IP continuing forward, that will continue to be kind of like the narrative being spun there. Um, because I think Dr. Hill is searching for something very specific, and he's searching for someone who will like Josh was too fragile and too far gone, and still held some sympathy and empathy towards his friends in the instances that he was inflicting. Clover, again, despite everything, still wanted to protect her friends. So was again like not quite it's something to do with like grief and fear and stuff because
And
she again was
self-sacrificing almost.
yes, because she was willing to like she was willing to go alone to go confront him um to get answers, but still like not do it at the expense of those who were living. And Josh is like similar where it's like he's putting people through trauma, um but he's also like he does and can recognize that um as well. Um
Mhm.
like but he's obviously like in a lot more of a fragile mental state than Clover is. So there's something there. And I'd be curious if they do take it forward, what the next iteration looks like. Will we actually see like because surely we can't see a version where like Dr. Hill wins, right? Like surely that can't be allowed. But I actually kind of want to see that, like what he actually is searching for, if he's searching for anything.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm like, "What does that look like? Like,
Yeah.
what is something here?" I don't know. I don't
Um,
know.
I wanna take a step back because you talked about the different nights and how they were self-aware. One thing I really liked that I actually wish like, they were kinda consistent and also kinda not consistent, is the fact that they
Mhm.
kept, like, bruises and stuff from the
Yes.
previous night, but I wish it had built more. Like, you see
Mhm.
it very clearly on the second night, all of the different, like, bruising and stuff that they have. Like, I think Megan's is very obvious because
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
her
she's
whole
fucked.
face got bashed in, so her whole face was bruised. But then, like, by the 3rd night, that stuff is gone from the 1st night.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
wish it would've, like, continued to
Yes, yeah,
build
yeah,
because
yeah.
I think that would've, like, really driven home that, like, how much it's wearing them down to
Mhm.
keep dying because they do actually have physical, like, ailments from even though they're coming back to life, they are still it's taking a physical toll on them. So
Yeah.
I wish that they could have just kept building with that.
Yeah, 100%. And, like, the whole, like that whole thing is, like, really scary. Like, one of the scariest, like, lines in it is when they're, like, in the, basement area, and, like, Clover just wakes up from her, like, weird dream thing, about her sister, and then she's like, "Oh, what night is it?" And we've skipped to the 13th night.
Yeah.
Like, we went through, like, the first 4 nights with them, I think, like, pretty full, and then we get told, like, "Oh, no, like, it's night 13," and they're like, "No, no, it's not, it's only, like, 5 or 4," and then she's like, "No, no, it's not. I've written my name down in this book. We are on 13, and no one's ever gone past 13." Like, that was such a scary reveal because it's like, "Oh, shit," like, they don't remember anything. And that's kind of the point. They're like, "Oh, well, we know not to do this and to do that," and it's like, "Nuh-uh, like, your memories are getting shattered." And going
Yeah,
through
see,
all of the, like, found footage on Abe's phone, I was also like, "Damn, bro."
I was like 50-50 on the found footage because, like, I like that we did do that time jump, and then, like, some of the found footage was okay, and I get it was their way of, like, explaining where Megan went, but some of it I
Yeah,
was just kind of like I know found footage is like a horror movie trope, so that's kind of where they were,
yeah.
like, playing into, but I was a little like, "Eh, this is
Yeah,
okay."
it was fine. I think it got warranted by the fact that we saw Abe recording in the first place. If we hadn't seen that,
Yes.
I would have been definitely like, why all of a sudden it made sense that it was something that instinct like the same way that she was constantly writing in the ledger book, the same way that he constantly pick up his phone, like the first repeated action as we see, like when Max is pulling Clover away from like the force field brain, like they kind of repeat that first initial action that they do every night, more or
Yes.
less. So like that kind of makes sense to me. But yeah, I agree. Some of it was like a bit like, okay, slaying, I
Yeah.
guess.
I
Um
found it interesting that scene when Clover wakes up, like, obviously, she was having that dream about her sister, but it also was, like, giving me the vibe that, like, each death takes a little bit longer to recover from. So, like,
100%.
she was, like, waking up later than the others because, like, it's taking a toll on them physically.
Yeah, for sure, and, like, that's a really, like, interesting like, that's what makes it so fascinating and makes it so unique in comparison to, like, other movies like it, where it's like, no, this has, like, genuine serious consequences, not only because, like, the stakes are, like, you don't like, you are gonna become part of the night, which is become a creature, which is basically, like, what's implied, but also, like, it's then becomes harder every like, you aren't really retaining the knowledge. They do kind of retain the knowledge, to be fair, but, like, they aren't retaining a lot of the knowledge. They have to actively, like, re-seek it back out, more or less. But,
Yeah.
like, also, like, you're it's becoming harder to do stuff because you are, like, physically, like, impaired or, like, growing new spine spikes or
Yeah.
teeth. Uh, so, like, really, really, like, weird as hell. I kind of, like and this was, like, one, and I was like when you were saying about the wishing to keep the physical ailments, when Max gets his eye gouged out, I really wish he was forever without that eye. Um
Yeah.
I think that would have been like if you had like a limb like actively chopped off before you die, like I think as long if you die and then you're dismembered, it doesn't count. But if you get like impaled in the eye and it like gets ripped out, I think that eye should be like KO'd. I think that is gone
Yes.
because you haven't died yet. Anything that happens after death, like who cares? But I think like the point of death, that spark being snuffed, anything that happens before that you should have kept. Because that would have been like crazy as hell if he was just like without an eye.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's the thing, like, I wish they had, like, kept and I'm now like, "Okay, so Megan, who was losing her hair and growing extra teeth, is she good now?
Mm. I
Or
don't
does she
know.
forever just have these extra teeth?" Like,
I don't
hair,
know.
sure, it can come back, but does she just
Well,
have these fangs?
What about Abe's spine?
Was that I wondered, like, was that just a result from the weird, like, parasite night?
I don't know. He had, like, weird spiky spine going on.
Was it spiky? Okay, to me, it just
Well,
kinda
it was
looked
like
like
it looked like the knobs
bug
of the
holes.
spine. Oh, no, for me to me, it looked like the knobs of the spine were, like, protruding.
Oh. Oh, I wonder if that's because of
Yeah.
yeah, okay, okay, I see
That's
what you're
kind of what
saying.
I thought. That's what I
No,
thought.
that makes
Like I
sense,
said,
that makes sense.
yeah, I'd have like, I do definitely want to, rewatch this probably when it comes out on streaming because I think there is more. Like, I saw some people being like, "Oh, these are connections, these are Easter eggs." 100% there is more than I first picked up on, and there's definitely more subtle ones. I was desperately trying to, like, keep my eyes on all the
I was
names in the guest
watching
book.
everything.
Yeah, I was looking at the guest book, couldn't find anything in the guest book, but I'd have to, like, slow it down. Megan had a little butterfly necklace, which I loved, like, shout out to
Yes.
that. Yeah, I'm sure there's more. Like, I was also looking at all the missing posters to be like, "Is there anything there?" Don't really think there was.
Because there were
We
no
obviously have
names
to
or
no
anything on
yeah,
them.
we had the nod to Hartley's, obviously Chris Hartley as the, like, petrol station, gas station, whatever.
Yeah.
100% there's more. Like, I feel like there is more links, and I am, like, desperate to find them. Maybe there isn't, but I feel like there's gotta be more Easter eggs. I'm sure there's lines and stuff where it's like, "Oh," um, but yeah, I'm so interested to see where they take it because I if they don't take it anywhere, absolutely fine. I think it
Yeah.
works for like I think it works. I'm satisfied, like fine. Um I'd be curious to see if they do a sequel. I think if they're gonna do a sequel, it will strictly be a movie sequel. We'll just kind of see like Dr. Hill just kind of like be this figure, which I do think makes sense because I've had a time to think since I mentioned it at the start of the episode of what I think
Mm.
Sony's doing. Obviously, like I said, Supermassive Games they do own Until Dawn still, but basically it's a Sony Pictures IP now, and it's
Yeah.
owned by wider entities than just Supermassive Games.
Right.
Um, but they do wholly own Dark Pictures Anthology. And like I said, that is inherently a wider universe with the creator telling the story. I wonder if they're trying to mimic that similar impact
Mm.
with Dr. Hill almost telling stories. He's not, but like him kind of being the through thread. If so, I'm curious. My only hesitant with it is how much can we see a group of friends go through similar instances of trauma and it stay refreshing. The anthology
Yeah.
is refreshing because the environment and situation changes. So far, we haven't really seen that kind of play out. Obviously, the game is someone inflicting harm to half the group and then supernatural other half. This is kind of like all supernatural vibes. So like I don't know what else you could do. without it feeling a bit stale unless something else happens. I don't know. But I'd be curious
I am
to see what that
curious,
involves.
does it always have to be a collapsed mine in a sanatorium?
Well, I think the themes are there on purpose. Like, I
Yeah.
think there are themes of the collapsing of minds reveals supernatural, like, whatever. It causes disturbances in nature, in the earth, um, which then, like, create an environment for fear to manifest. It's kind of like
Mhm,
the way
mhm.
I would look
Okay,
at it.
okay.
Um, and I think Dr. Hill, like, actively seeks that out. I think he's like, "I see me a mind collapse, I'm going there."
His
Like a
Google
little
history is
weirdo.
just
Just
how many
mind
mines have collapsed in the United States. Abandoned mine collapse locations.
collapsed minds and unstable teens, that's what he's looking at. He's gonna get himself
Collapsed
on a
mines
list.
plus sanatorium.
Sanatorium, a must. Top
Going through
10
Google
sanit
Images like, "Ooh, this one looks
Ooh,
nice."
I literally would piss myself. Listen, I don't care whatever you do. I forever am living off the high of that moment I saw that massive fucking pen. I cannot and will never get over it. I cannot. I cannot even.
I I am convinced that somebody listened to our podcast and was like,
That
"Yo,
is
put
so
a big fucking pen
specific.
on that desk."
That is so specific. Like, don't get me wrong, they pretty much nailed that, like, at least in my head, that is pretty
Yes.
much like, even with the boarded up windows, the lamp, like,
Oh,
everything, like,
yeah.
that is his office, like, it's spot on,
As
like,
soon as I
genuinely
saw
spot
it, I
on.
was like,
Yeah, it's spot on. It's phenomenal, I'm obsessed with it, it's
"Yes."
brilliant. I like to think that he basically carries all his perfect office supplies everywhere he goes to, every sanatorium he goes into, which is so funny to me, including the wallpaper, the fucking, like, curtains, and the flooring. Man is prepared.
Yes.
Um, but yeah,
He has an
as soon as,
interior
like,
designer on speed dial.
they the thing about that pen moment was, it wasn't just, like, on the desk and you're like, "Oh, pen." They panned to that pen. Like, there was a focus
Yes.
point on that pen. I'm like,
I was
"It's
like,
only for me."
I really thought she was gonna stab him with that pen until I saw the water drip, and then I was like, "Oh, that's the route we're going
Imagine
with."
being
I
stabbed with
really
that
thought
pen.
I really thought that's the route we were going. I thought we
Yeah.
were gonna be stabbed
No,
with the giant pen.
I listen, if you don't understand my fascination with the giant pen, you haven't lived, because every time we play this game or I mention this game, I'm just like, "Why is this pen so big? Why
It
is it
is
so
comically
big?"
large.
Like, it's it is, right? Like, I'm like, there's big pens, right? I understand for dexterity and grip.
Yeah,
Some people
yeah.
need a little bit of a bigger grip on their pen. This is a joke pen. Like, this is someone gave it to this as a joke and he's kept it, which I love. But I'm also like, it's an ink pen. Like, when he untips it, I'm like, so it's like, it's not a biro. Like,
Maybe, maybe it's not actually a pen, it's a flask.
oh, and he's just like, oh my God.
He's just taking shots.
Yeah. It's actually his like medicine. Like, it's like an EpiPen. He has to jab it into him so he doesn't die.
It's his evil guy medicine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's his
This is how
I
I
stay
stay
alive
evil.
medicine. It's how I stay evil and stay alive. I will also say, harping on about the man, the myth, the legend that is Dr. Hill, two
Yes.
more things on him. A, he obviously looks significantly younger than he does in the game, so that is also a thing of like, what does that mean? I like to believe that he has done some voodoo magic ass shit and he is now like live, laugh, laughing, thriving, because that would mean he is more of an omnipotent present. Maybe he's feeding on the manifestation of fear and it's making him feel younger. That would be Loki Slay. I don't know. That's just a thought. That's just a theory. It's a
A
film
game
theory, not a
theory.
game. It's not a game. It's a film. It's a both. I don't know, but like he does look different, and like that's just because like Peter Stormare is not going to look like that because he's not.
Yeah.
Because it's different vibes. So whatever. Also, Peter Stormare, I love you. I love you. Just
Yes.
saying that because you slayed. And I knew you would. I was coming to that movie for you, and you did not disappoint. So thank you so much, Game. Because
Yes.
as soon as I heard your voice, I was like, oh, oh, and I heard him again. I was like, oh, like I knew he was gonna be more than the gas station person, but I was like, I was, I
Yeah.
was, I was foaming at the mouth at that.
He
Um,
was great.
yeah. But seriously though, the other thing I was gonna say is we saw his like exact replica of the office in the sanatorium here. Does that
Mhm,
mean that
mhm,
his
mhm.
office in the game is in the sanatorium, but not maybe Blackwood Pine Sanatorium, but maybe wherever Josh was seeking treatment from him? Because that is kind of the link that he is. Like clearly he's based in these places, like in these institutions, with the identical like replica potentially. And we
Or
kind of see that like when you look out the windows in the like in between chapters, you kind of see that there's like a taller like story building. So he's, I don't know, but
hear me out, hear me out.
okay. Hmm.
The office is one spot, and with all of his omniscient shoo
Ooh,
you can, like,
shibidi-doo-boo.
enter it from any plane.
That's why he can't be killed because like he's in his plane. He's in his like ethereal plane. That is
Mhm.
very interesting. That
That's
also
my
makes
theory.
sense as to why, because that makes sense. Because we're cooking. We're cooking something. Because, like I said, in the first like 2, 3 instances of the chapters in the game, when you
Yes.
are in the office, you can look out of the window. And like I said, you can kind of see like there's buildings out there. And it kind of looks
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
a hospital-esque. Then it becomes closed off and it becomes wooden barred as you see it in the movie.
Yes.
Again, in the movie, is that like in the game, we don't know why that is. It's like just because everything around it's becoming madness. In this, like, is it is it very likely just because this is underground? Yes, but we did see other windows that were open. So I like to think that you are maybe correct, where it's like this was a real office entity that Josh went to, like physically went to. This is an office that existed, like physically
Mhm.
existed in the real world. But then the one that we see where it's like, but literally boarded off is like its own, like maybe ethereal plane vibe. Who
Yeah.
knows? Or he literally just picks up everything in this room and takes it everywhere he goes, which is incredibly funny if that is true. If he's replicating this office down to a T every single place he goes. That is so funny and so silly, and I love it. I love it.
I mean, he
That's
is
what
a silly, goofy guy, so it's very possible.
it's so funny to me. Again, is it probably just because they're like, "Oh, do you remember this place?" Like, 100%. I'm sure it's literally
Yeah.
nothing, but now I'm like, it has to be something because why is it an exact replica? Like, I know
Down
it's
to
smaller.
the pen!
Like, I know it's smaller, but, like, it's genuinely the same. It's a silly green lamp. Like, what is happening?
Yeah,
It even has a
yeah.
fireplace. It's on the wrong wall, but there's still a fireplace in that room. Like, bruh. And it had that weird, like, mannequin thing in there as well. It's like, that's weird as hell, bro.
I'm just glad there was no jar of roaches on the desk.
Well, she hadn't had her, like, eval where she's like, "Yo,
I'm just saying.
I'm
I'm
scared
just
of
glad there was
men.
no jar of I'm scared of men.
I'm scared of men. Send
Same,
help,
actually.
no." Yeah, who isn't? But, like, that's such a funny question. I know
It
why they
is.
ask you, but it's so silly. Yeah, there's
Um,
lots to like there's so much going on there. Like, I don't even know.
one other kudos I wanna give them is I did
Mhm.
like how there were times that it did feel like a QTE don't move
Yes,
moment, which
yes.
I thought was a cute nod. Like, I remember particularly one point, Clover trips and falls and almost hits that spike.
Mhm.
And I was
Oh, yeah,
like,
that was
"That is a
so good.
QTE right there. That was
Yeah,
a
that was so
QTE.
good.
She failed, she would have gotten impaled."
Yeah, 100%. No, it's and again, there's moments where it felt like they were choice moments. Like the
Yeah,
when Clover and Max are like in that mine area and she's like, "Kill me." It felt like that was a choice moment, right? Like,
yes.
no, yes. That I did enjoy that, and it felt good. Like it made sense, and it also like does like it kind of you genuinely could like see this out, take it out from it being a movie, and it is fairly like playable per se.
Yeah,
Like, so I think that's an interesting way of looking at it as well. Yeah, like overall, like I think they did a considering the turn like this was announced like this movie, like we saw like the back of like the director's chair. Like the turnaround of this like shooting, production, editing was incredibly fast. And
yes.
given that and like I know it did have like fairly like decent budget behind it because again, like it's a Sony thing, it's very impressive because movies take a long freaking time, bro. So I am and especially, like, a lot of this was gonna be, like, in the post-production, which makes sense. It makes sense why the shooting was actually quite quick, because a lot of it is, like, special effects and stuff, but, like, I think it all looked good. I'm curious to see how much they actually did practical. Some of the blood did definitely read as, like, CGI blood. That's not necessarily a bad thing because it just saves on money and cleanup, so I'm not necessarily, like, opposed to it, but sometimes you could like, especially with exploding, but I think that was kind of meant to look janky anyway, so I'm not really gonna hold it above their heads. But everything else, I'm like, "This looks fucking, like, rad as hell," and I really wanna, like, see the behind the scenes of how they shot some of the things because it was very, 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 very cool. And also, if anyone's, like, listening from the movie set, can I take the hourglass wall thing? Because I kind of want it. Thank you.
Can I have just something? I'll take anything.
Oh! I just forgot. I should have asked for the most important thing, the big pen.
The giant pen!
Why else I asked for anything else? Now the little green lamp. I do love his little, like, lamp that he has.
I would like the ledger with everyone's names where they
Ooh,
slowly
yeah,
get more
yeah,
and
yeah.
more
Ooh, it's so, like,
distorted.
nasty. It's so nasty.
It
Ew.
is.
Yeah, it reminds me of, like, in, like, Hannah's diary where, like, her writing gets all, like, more fucked as the time you progress. Which I think is also interesting because the 2 weeks comes back there because she lasts for effectively 2 weeks before she more or less turns, and we see
Mm,
13
mhm,
days is,
mhm,
like,
mhm.
the cap. So interesting that that is the
Very.
timeline potentially of the descent into, like, becoming a creature and into that madness spiral.
I am also curious though because, like, Abe, while he was kind of a dumbass, had an excellent point, like, do people have different thresholds?
I think yes,
And I think that's
100%.
curious because, like, obviously, I can't think of what her name was, the one signing the book, was the
Is it
only one signing. Nadia? Nina?
It begins with Nina? I wanna say it's Nina, but I don't think it is Nina.
No, it is Nina, you're correct.
Okay. I was like, "I'm pretty sure it's Nina," but
Um,
then I was like, "Did I just make that up?" Yeah. Yes.
she was the only one signing, and, like,
Yeah.
we know, like, Melanie, Clover's sister, was alone, which I also think is a big thing. I think if you're alone versus in a group, huge
Uh-huh,
difference
oh, 100%,
because,
yeah.
like, we see Melanie, like, make it out of, like, what would be, like, the final part, she's climbing out of the ground, and then Mr. Mask just comes.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, you've got everything
So,
hunting you as opposed to, like, it being dispersed, which they did well.
yeah.
That's basically how they survived, is they split up the threats in the end,
Yes.
which is incredibly clever and makes a lot of sense. No,
Yes.
I fully do think people have different thresholds. Um, I think we kind of see that in the way that they're, like, the rate of transformation that they kind of go under. Like Megan is massively impacted by the knights, whereas the others
That's
less
true.
so. Obviously she still has I again think that you're right with being in a group. I think if Megan was alone, she would have been gone like after like night 4. I think she would have been fucked. Like
Yeah.
I think her threshold was so low that her being in a group where it's kind of like the impact of death is like dispersed, I think helps a
Yeah.
little bit. But it is fascinating because yeah, 100% I think people have different thresholds. Because ew,
I also do
ew.
love that they kept like some general horror movie tropes.
Yeah,
Like when Megan got possessed and was like, "Don't let it in." And then
they
the
let it
the
in.
ghost was Melanie's voice and Clover
Yeah,
opened the door. And in my head I was like, "You dumb bitch. You had one rule. Don't let it
yeah,
in." And what did you do? You let it in.
you let it in. You let it in. You fucking stupid, bro. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Just
yeah,
a
and
classic horror movie like moment
yeah,
there.
and again, like, I liked how they immediately explained away, there's no signals, there's no phones, and, like, very clever, again, dead ending their immediate route of escape, which is the car. Again, very clever. Setting up those things, it feels very like, duh, of course, but like it's important. You got to set up the scenario, you got to set up the stakes here. And I think that they did that very well. It felt understandable, it felt reasonable.
Mhm.
The way that the characters found out information also felt very like organic. It didn't feel like weird. Um, I'm like, no, yes, they would inherently come across this information as you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought like overall what they did, I was given how, like, nervous I was going into it, I was
Yeah.
impressed. I was impressed. I had a good time. And like you said, like, as we've just, like, discussed for the past, like, 40 minutes, there's a lot to chew on in what it means in the bigger picture. Like, you
Yes.
can definitely talk about this completely isolated at just what it is, and that's completely fine. But I think if they're gonna take the namesake and they're gonna take inspiration from the game, I think there intrinsically is links, and whether or not those links are actually there, who gives a shit? Because I'm gonna think they are, and I'm gonna ponder on it, and I'm just gonna think, I can't wait to see Dr. Hill come to the screen again and ruin more lives.
Yes. I
I
do
need him.
wish I do wish someone had died, like, permanently.
I I do think that is what is interesting, and this is also kind of what is interesting about the remaster of the game, is what is in the game. Obviously, as one would know if you've got this far, you obviously cannot not save everyone. That's
Yeah.
a double negative, but basically people can die. Um, what when you have the like, and you kind of get that Sam cutscene if Sam lives, like at the end.
Yes.
But my question is if they were to do a sequel or continue that story, what is the canon ending? Surely surely it's everyone survived, right? But is it? Like, I think someone needs to be dead. But then I'm like, who the fuck is dying and how are you? Because realistically, if someone's dying, it has to be like Jess.
Right.
It has to be by the creature, right? It can't be a Josh related incident. And I know they all can
Mhm.
die like via the creature, but like it has to feel like there is response. And that's also why it's interesting for this. But I think one of the reasons they didn't die was because Mr. Hill was like, yo, like one of you can like sacrifice yourself to like escape. Wasn't he saying something like
Yeah.
that? Where it's like one of yeah, and it was like
Like,
and they
you
were
have to,
like and
like,
they were
pick one of you.
my favorite thing was like when that was said over the radio and he and Abe was like, "Yeah, like, let's do it." And then they all turned to him and was like, "Are you willing to sacrifice yourself for us?" And he was like, "No." And I was like, "Yeah,
Well, and
we've
not
seen it
to
in the
mention,
past."
like, "Abe, you are the outsider here.
Yeah,
Why
I
would
would
you
be
say that?"
like, I would be there like, "How much do you love your boyfriend, Nina?" Because I'm thinking if worse comes to worse, we might potentially have to do some chopping.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and, like, clearly you see she gets fed up with him. She axed him at
Yeah,
one point.
that was so fucking funny. When he's just, like,
That
dying
was
on the floor and she's just like, oh, holding his hand. That's what makes it quite good. It's like it's very serious and like quite dark at moments, but like those moments where it's just like that, I'm like, this they've encapsulated the tone of the game like very well. I was like, yeah,
yes, yes.
this is correct. Like this is right. He's like, and she's like, like
God,
fuck
he's
off.
dying and it's annoying.
And the way that the psycho comes in and she's like him first. She gives no shit. She
I
gives no
know.
shit at all. I was like, yes, queen, my bisexual queen. She's out here
Yes.
killing men. I was obsessed with that. Um, but also like, does it mean like just because they survive the night, right, and they escape, like are they free? Like are they detached from
That's
this
what I'm
forever?
saying. Is Megan okay? Is Megan going to become a creature? Like, she has a bad day at work, gets a little scared at one point, and, like, she's done for? Like,
Well, that's the thing. We don't know because we've
we
never
don't
been
know.
introduced to we've never been introduced to that as like a mechanic before. But I will say, like, it does seem that you still have to potentially feed literally to become a creature. As we saw that on the VHS tape with the
Yeah,
guy
that's
in the
true.
thing, he did eat the intestine and the heart. So like, I think there is like uh again, there's like a threshold to it. Like I think you could become part of the night, but whether or not you become like the creatures or something else like the like witch hag in the
Well,
shed
because
or
like, even,
whatever.
like, Melanie was a creature, but she also wasn't at the same time.
She was like
A weird, like,
she was
hybrid.
yes, she was not yeah, she wasn't as we know them to be. And there were those ones, but she
Yes.
wasn't. She was more humanoid. She was more humanoid for sure. So I wonder if that is like the difference. Um, but she had very much her like head was transformed, but the rest of
Proportional.
her was yeah, her head, the rest of her body was not. So, but I also wonder like if she were to feed on humans, which she probably hasn't had the chance to yet, if she were to like, let's say one of them were to die by like, let's say she did eat her sister, like would she then fully transform? I would like to think yes, maybe. I don't know. Um curious. Curious. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
So
that was
Megan
interesting
just
'cause
needs to not be on a plane to going to a soccer's national tournament.
that would be the most
That crashes.
insane link up ever. Could you imagine? Yeah. Do not take unnecessary journeys. Do not become a lesbian soccer player, please. Please do not. Oh my god, imagine. But yeah, I look, Sony, if you need someone, if you need people to A star in a movie, we're here. If you
Call
need
me.
someone if you need people to sit in your brainstorming sessions, we are here.
Call us.
Like please.
If you need people to just be your hype people at the premiere,
Yeah,
call us. We're
I will
here,
be there. I will
whatever
be
you
there.
want.
Yeah. I look, I'm sad. This is like our favorite game. As like
Yes.
much as I'm like, do I want them to like do too much and it feel oversaturated and like ruin it? No, I don't think that's what's happened here at all. Like if anything, I'm like, it's definitely been good questions to chew on. So I'm
Yeah.
pleased by that. But like yeah, I just give me more. I've been waiting like a decade and then you're giving me more, so you gotta give me more. I can't wait another decade, please. And
I
it's
mean, to be fair, we
more.
waited a decade and then got a remaster and a movie, so
Yeah, but I'm like,
we
"Please
have
don't
been
make me
fed.
wait." But don't make me wait another 10 years. I'm
True.
shook. But we are being fed later this year anyway with Directed 20. So like there's more coming. There's on the horizons. So it's all good. And I'm very excited. We've had a nice break from the anthology. We're returning to it. But yeah, I'm so curious. I'm so curious. I'm so curious. And listen, if a sequel doesn't get made to the game, and like, do I necessarily want a sequel? I don't know. I'm still on the fence. But if one doesn't get made in like 5 years, I will literally learn to code and learn to make a game and make it myself.
Okay, I'm holding you to that.
Yeah.
I will see you in 2030.
Ew.
I
Yeah, that'll
know.
be on my 30 before 30 bucket list is to make the sequel
There
sounds
you go.
fun.
Oh my
Yeah.
god,
So
wait, you won't even be 30 in 5 years. That's so weird.
yeah, no, I
I
won't
turn
be.
29 tomorrow.
Yeah. I'll be 29 in 5 years.
Ew!
Yippee!
Ew! Ew! Okay. On that note, I'm gonna go find myself an abandoned mine shaft and jump.
Go drink some yummy mine water.
Yes. Big boom.
Big
Alright.
boom. Oh, we're done. We're done. We're
We're
done.
done. Got the cameras.
Yeah. If you have
Bye.
thoughts and feelings, let us know. But
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say. I'm fried. To toodaloo.
Toodles.
Thanks so much for listening. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. To stay connected with us, then follow us on social media, which are linked in the description. I've been Emily.
And I've been Scar.
Tune in next time for the best cottagecore podcast for the cottage whores.